And so defense attorney Alex Karapancev joins us now in studio. You've been following this case closely here from the very beginning. And just a note to our viewers, Alex, we're waiting for the final words on this trial here. However, the judge has already said that the Crown has not proven any of the charges before the court. And there was a moment in there, as our Michelle Mackey is reporting, inside the courtroom where some of the family members got emotional. I want to start there and get some takeaways from you.
Sure, Faiza. So yes, the judge has not delivered her final verdict yet in the case, saying not guilty for each of the accused. However, she's made it clear that the Crown has not proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Thus, we can expect that the verdicts will be not guilty.
Okay, I want to break down what this trial is all about. As we mentioned, the 5 professional hockey players all pleading not guilty, each charged with sexual assault. And you hear the word consent mentioned over and over again this trial here, the role that consent has played and the perception of consent here. Walk us through how the judge is expected to perhaps touch on that throughout her reasoning leading to her verdict.
Sure. So in any sexual assault trial, the issue comes down to whether or not the Crown has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that there was sexual activity which was not consensual. So that burden's on the Crown to prove. Now, how does the Crown go about proving that? Well, it's really hard to prove what was in people's minds 7 years ago. And their only witness, who was the victim, alleged victim of a sexual assault, was EM, the complainant. So she had to testify about what her state of mind was and what was happening in that hotel room. Now, that's not the end of the matter. We don't just accept witnesses at their word. The case needs to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and thus the witness needs to be credible and reliable to satisfy that very high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. What we've learned is that the judge has found that EM was not credible or reliable. That means she is not accepting her evidence as to what happened. And we heard earlier today, as Her Honour's providing her reasons, that some of the reasons why she finds her not credible is because the complainant has contradicted herself on prior statements. She told police one thing, told the court another thing. She said one thing happened, video footage from the bar in question, from the hotel. The consent videos, the videos where she said she was consenting, clearly contradict what she said in court. So those are the types of issues that a judge looks at in assessing a case.
And we've already seen some of that playing out with the judge in court there. I'm wondering, this trial is emotionally charged, and then you have video, you have statements made years ago to different parties. You have police, you have Hockey Canada, you have police once again, and the courts. And so I'm wondering, all of that factors in there. Doesn't that go against the complainant in this case? It doesn't work in her favor.
Well, I mean, we know London police investigated originally 7 years ago. They spent 7 months investigating. Experienced detectives, experienced officers, looked at all the evidence, spoke to EM, spoke to other witnesses, looked at the CCTV footage, and determined that there were not reasonable and probable grounds to lay charges.
Which they were criticized for.
And they were criticized mainly when the Hockey Canada settlement came out. There was uproar on social media about why this happened, and then London police decided to lay charges. We've now seen with the judge's verdict that they were likely right the first time around when they chose not to lay charges.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this trial too. In essence, you've been in our newsroom speaking with us as there have been updates and changes here. We're talking about a mistrial issued, 2 juries dismissed, transitioning to a judge-only trial. How does this impact a trial?
This was a wild trial. You don't typically get juries dismissed. You don't get them dismissed twice. It was a bit of a roller coaster. There were issues that arose that required the first jury to be dismissed. That was fortunately within the first few days of the trial. Then a new jury was picked. Then an issue arose near the end of the trial with that jury. And ultimately, the judge decided to discharge the jury, and she decided to preside for the trial continuing. And so the main difference is that now we're getting what we're seeing today. Justice Maria Caracia is providing reasons for her verdicts. Had this have been a jury trial, we wouldn't have received any reasons for those verdicts. We would have heard guilty or not guilty, and that would have been the end of it. Now, the public has the benefit of understanding why the complainant was not credible, why she was not reliable, and why these defendants are not guilty of the offenses.
And there's going to be debates. We're seeing already this trial that's garnering attention across the country. It's bringing advocates and protesters with holding signage for EM saying, quote, "We believe you." We've seen that playing out throughout the trial as well as outside the courtroom today as well. The emotions involved here, and I can't help but to think about the 9 days of EM taking the stand, and 7 of those days just grueling testimony, because each 5 of those players has their own lawyers here. That's something we rarely see somebody on the stand going through.
Yes, so because the Crown chose to have a joint trial for all 5 defendants, each of them are constitutionally entitled to present a defense. So they should be allowed to cross-examine the complainant. That's been our law in the British common law tradition for hundreds of years, perhaps 1,000 years. So that's the law, and it's there for good reason. It's to ensure that individuals aren't wrongfully convicted on the mere word of a witness. And yes, the testimony of the complainant would have been difficult for her, but it's important to note that Her Honor, Justice Karapancev, at the beginning of her reasons today, outlined that she thought the defense was quite fair in its cross-examination.
I want to go back how we talked. In your words, you said this was a wild trial here. We don't know the final verdict yet, but could there be, and I appreciate this might be a bit too early to ask, could there be grounds for appeal?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think any of the players will be appealing the decision if they're all acquitted. The Crown always has the right to review the decision and decide if they're going to appeal. I don't think they're going to. This isn't a decision that had complex legal issues. The issues were very simple. Trial judges hear these cases throughout our nation on a daily basis. Her Honor listened to the complainant, she listened to the other Crown witnesses, she listened to the defendants. I would say there was an overwhelming amount of evidence that hurt the Crown's case. I couldn't see any judge in our country convicting these men after hearing that evidence. I don't think the Crown will appeal, but that's their right.
I think depending on who you are and what you do, you work in the legal realm, we can ask this question to advocates as well, and I think they'll have a different response. But I'd like to ask you, what do you think the implications of this trial and the outcome could be?
Well, again, the benefit we have in Canada is that we have a great legal system. We have judges that are really the envy of the world. They're incredibly impartial and fair. And notwithstanding all the public pressure there was on this case, we saw those protesters day in and day out with those signs demanding convictions for these men. That did not hamper the justice process. Clearly, Justice Karapancev heard all the evidence. She wasn't affected by public perception, and she ultimately did the right thing by applying the law and coming to the verdicts that she's going to come to.
Okay. I think this is, whether you look at it from one way or another, a difficult trial for everybody involved. Alex Karapancev, listen, we want to thank you for being with us this entire trial and just walking us through what everything means, including today as we continue to await for this verdict. Alex, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.